I am so happy to be joined by Gary Kusin, who is the founder of GameStop and was the CEO of Kinko's, which would later become FedEx Office. Take me through. How did a business entrepreneurial mindset start for you? You went to Texas, you got an MBA at Harvard, but where did the entrepreneurship come in for you?
Yeah, good question. Good question, Jacob. I I think too few companies start the way we started what became GameStop. And what I mean by that is my partner and I, my co-founder and I, were classmates and study group mates at the Harvard Business School. So we became very good friends over a couple of years there. As fate happens, he finished number one in the class, and I finished at the opposite end. So when you finish at the top of the class, you get to go to Bain or McKinsey. You can take your pick. And Jim very quickly became a partner at Bain, early Bain Consulting. I started in the world of retailing, in department store retailing, because I was trying to get up enough nerve to ask the woman to be my wife, who's now been my wife forever. And she wanted to live in San Francisco. So I found the only job I could find in San Francisco was at a department store, which led to me working in the department store industry for 3 years. And while I was there, I developed a very strong point of view that department stores were dying, that specialty stores were emerging and taking the lunch from department stores. Companies like The Gap was starting, and all of a sudden, if you sold jeans in a department store, you were losing to The Gap. Victoria's Secret killed our intimate apparel business. So I developed a point of view that said in any category of consumer goods that reaches measurable size, that the specialty store channel will become an important and possibly dominant channel of distribution. So, with that backdrop, Jim had gone to the Silicon Valley with Bain to look at and help video game publishers, which were just emerging. This was the dawn of video games. And he was helping companies who became Electronic Arts, Activision, Atari, and he knew more than anybody knew about the world of video gaming. I was very committed to the fact that specialty stores were going to be an emerging dominant category of distribution. So Jim came into Dallas one week when I was living in Dallas, and we sat at my kitchen table, and he spread out all the charts and graphs that talked about, if you go all the way back to the mid 1930s, the penetration of radios, it was like a hockey stick. Then the penetration of black and white TVs was like a hockey stick, color TVs like a hockey stick, audio discs like a hockey stick, and on and on and on. Where he said, various types of new electronic ways to entertain yourself are emerging. And what happened when stereos started emerging in the late 1950s? Guess what came right behind them? Rock music. People who made records, which essentially was the software for stereos. And so you could make a big argument. And I told him, I was like, gee, he said, his customers were all going to make software for video game systems. And if you looked at all the penetration curves, you would say, whoa. And with what I knew, I said, Jim, this sounds like it's going to happen. And if it happens, a specialty store will become the dominant channel of distribution for video games. Why don't you quit your job at Bain and I'll quit my job at Macy's, and together we'll start a new specialty store chain that just sells video games for incoming video game systems and software for computers used in the home. And that's our very first store. When it opened, became the very first software store in the world. There was no store anywhere in the world selling only video games at that time. And it was because Jim and I didn't say, let's be entrepreneurs. Let's go find something that needs to be done and let's go do it. We weren't doing that. We were developing very hard data. And so when people tell me, want to talk about being an entrepreneur, my biggest problem based on my background and experience is people take their hobbies and they want to make businesses out of them. I think that's a horrible idea. I mean, hobbies are to have fun and to enjoy. I can't think of anything that could ruin something that you love faster than to try and turn it into a business, because business is tough. So Jim nor I were video game players. We didn't come at it with a passion for video games, but we knew that video games were going to be the coming thing.
And we have seen a decline in physical video games with artificial intelligence. We've seen a decline with video games, with things that are online now. What are your thoughts on that?
That is how it works. If you think about it, electronics become obsolete. Black and white TVs became obsolete for color TVs. Boom boxes became obsolete by other forms of broadcasting music. The best example, we saw the handwriting on the wall, was Blockbuster. Blockbuster was an incredible retail concept, renting movies for people to watch at home on their VCRs. It became a huge business, and then it died. And you know why it died? Because Netflix figured out how to send you a CD overnight in the mail and quickly move towards streaming content. Well, that's software. And in the digital world, content is king. And you could see we reached $10 billion in revenues in 10,000 stores in 60 countries with GameStop. But you could see the handwriting on the wall. Nothing lasts forever. And you could see that the very technology that enabled GameStop to become the global behemoth that it became was the very thing that was going to ultimately kill it. And they're trying very hard right now at GameStop to find what's the next stone to jump to. But I can promise you, and they know that, they've dropped out of about 50 countries and they're down from 10,000 stores to maybe 1,000. They know that they're going to have to find something new. So things don't last forever. But the key takeaway that I guess I would say for you, Jacob, is if you want to, don't think about it in terms of, I have an entrepreneurial bug. Think about it in terms of, what can I research and find a gap in the marketplace for that is a large category that has multiple channels of distribution, and that I can make a difference by pursuing that particular channel in a differentiated way. And if you do all of the homework with hard data and a thesis, what is this and how is it going to work and what will success look like, and you do your homework, you'll come up with something that could be built to last. And then all of a sudden, if you're successful, someone's going to tap you on the head and say, how in the world did you become such a great entrepreneur? And the real answer is, being an entrepreneur is a result. It's a result of doing your homework, planning, thinking, develop investment theses, working through the numbers, all those sorts of things. And if you do that and you're successful with it, then you are, as a result of that, an entrepreneur.
Wow. And I'm just curious, have you talked to Ryan Cohen, the current CEO of GameStop, at all? Obviously, he founded Chewy's.
Yeah, I actually met with him once at Chewy's to try and buy him when I was in the private equity world with TPG. He has not ever returned my call. I've only tried to call him twice. I'd never call anyone more than that. He's pretty busy. He's got his hands full. He did not understand the meme craze. He did not, he's missed a bunch of stuff, but he really got it right with Chewy's. And he got all the benefit of that insight, which started Chewy's. He just got lost along the way at GameStop because he didn't understand the business and, most importantly, the customers.
And he also comes from the era where he would have been somebody that would have been buying your games a little bit younger.
Absolutely.
So
I'm
his
so
aspect on the business is going to be different than you because you founded it. He was a consumer that ran into your store as a kid and probably bought video games.
Yep, absolutely. You are 100% right.
I am also curious, is are there any like tech people that inspired you? Of course, you were, I mean, Bill Gates wasn't at his point at the time, but was there anybody like,
Yeah, Bill
and
and
the
I go back. Bill and I actually go back to the start of video games. He called me one day. Our first name was Babbage's, named for Charles Babbage, a British entrepreneur and mathematician who in 1860 literally discovered what became the precursor to the computer. It used punch cards. He was that kind of inveterate guy that came up with lots of stuff. People were scared of video games. And when we started our video game store, software was a word used for women's underwear. It was not, there was no such thing as software when we started, so we couldn't call it software at that time. We put a name on it that harkened back to a century-old entrepreneur who invented the computer as a way of saying, guys, this isn't scary. We put screens in front of our store showing loops of gameplay so people could stand out in the mall and not commit to come into the store because they were scared of what is this thing called software. But Bill called me and said, hey, I don't get it. He said, I look at our sales data. We sell this game called Microsoft Flight Simulator. And he said, in all of America, you sell them more than anybody. I don't understand that. Our stores are in, it was a precursor to Best Buy, but they were in all the major computer stores in America, selling all the typical Microsoft productivity software, but they had this one game called Microsoft Flight Simulator. He said, I want to come to Dallas. So he flew down to Dallas, and he and I had a good long breakfast together. And then I took him out into our stores and showed him our stores. And he was like, wow, I can't believe it. This is really cool.
what year was this?
This was 1985, 86. And when I became CEO of Kinko's in 2001, he's one of the first people who called me. And he said, look, we have this idea at Microsoft for web services, what became digital part of the computer business. And he said, I've got a great idea for a skit you and I could do at the Consumer Electronics Show. And you can Google that and find it. He played himself. He woke up one morning in Des Moines, Iowa. He was supposed to make a presentation, didn't have his presentation, and called back to Seattle. They sent him the presentation to a Kinko's in Des Moines. We took the file, printed it, made a bunch of copies for him, delivered it to him at the hotel. And that was our skit at the Consumer Electronics Show. Got lots of play. But Bill and I became friends, and I haven't seen him in a few. I saw him at a Broadway play in New York. It was a while back, but I haven't really spoken to him since.
Wow. Um, and then I guess what would you say, what would your advice be for somebody who's in college? Would your advice be for somebody in college? Would it be to be a hustler, try to find a problem to solve and make a business? Would your advice be to find your dream girl? Would your advice be to go on to master school? What would your advice be?
My advice would be your 20s are for exploring the world. You explore potential spouses, potential jobs, try things, learn things. It worked for me to go to work for a large company like Macy's because I could see how the big people did it. And so I could learn a bunch of lessons from people who were very seasoned professional managers. And that helped me when I ended up starting my own company. And so but I have 4 kids, and as I told them, uh, don't feel like it's the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life when you make a decision of what to do when you get out of college, because your 20s don't matter for the long run. The smarter you can get, the more things you can try, and you can find what does float my boat, what makes me happy. Now, if you've got this burning desire to be an entrepreneur, go find a startup you could go to work for. That's great. And you could try it, and you may decide, boy, I don't have a risk profile, because that's what entrepreneurs learn is, what is your risk profile? What's your tolerance for pain? And so I would suggest to you, do it all in your 20s. And then when you turn 30, start going, okay, I got to get serious. What have I learned? What is the best stuff I've learned, the worst stuff I've learned in my 20s? And how do I make a good decision about my way forward?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And um, I think that's important. Now, it is a lot more expensive to try things in today's world with inflation, and that's totally changed from 50 years ago. I do got to point that out. But I think you're mostly right on that. So,
Well, if you're starting a company, but remember when we started our company, our backer, do you know who our backer was for GameStop? Ross Perot.
yep.
He was the world's first billionaire. And he and I were born and raised in the same city. I met him at my high school graduation, and he was after me for 10 years to do something so he could back me. And he ended up being our financial backer. But the fact is, venture capital works the same way today as it did then. This thing about, on the one hand, inflation, you're correct. But on the other hand, I was a Harvard Business School graduate, and I jumped at a $17,500 a year offer when I graduated. So the world was certainly different in an inflation sense, but 17,500 had a buying power equal to probably 60 or 70,000 today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy. I'm curious then, if Ross Perot, when he ran for president, if he had won, do you think you would have been in his cabinet? Do you think you would have been his chief of staff? Do you think you'd have
No,
been technical?
I don't know. I knew everybody who was working on his campaign, but when he left, I mean, when he wanted to be bought out, you know who bought him out? Bain, because of Jim's relationship with his best friend. His best friend had a name, Mitt Romney. Mitt joined our board, and for 13 years was on our board of directors. As we bought software, et cetera, changed our name to GameStop. Mitt Romney was there too. So, we've been lucky enough to have a lot of very interesting figures strolling across the stage of our careers, if you will.
I'm curious, have you ever done anything with Ron Paul? I've interviewed Ron Paul as well on the show. He's from Texas too, so
Corpus Christi, yeah, but Texas is 35 million people. He's a doctor. He's from South Texas, and yeah, I'm familiar with him.
well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Gary. I do just want to give a quick shout out to AJ's, which is a restaurant off campus near Purdue University. They have delicious food, so if you're ever up here, I will have to treat you out to AJ's. Really appreciate them supporting the show, supporting a young person like
Sure,
myself. So just wanted to point that out.
absolutely. I would enjoy going there. I bet the food's great.
It is. And what's been your favorite country to sell video games in that you've visited? I'll close with that.
You know, I've been asked thousands of questions. I've never been asked that, and I think it's a great question. So I would probably say America. And that's Americans live a different life. And especially when you're growing up, you have more freedoms than maybe you have in other places. And the relationship that we were able to have in the US with our customers was very special. I was contacted, literally got an email from a customer when we only had 10 stores. We called him Big Dave. He was a video game fanatic, and he would call and yell at us if some new Atari game came out and we hadn't called him to tell him it was out. And so he called. He's now a very successful business guy. And Jim and I, my partner and co-founder, and I had a great conversation with him. And that kind of relationship is just, that's wild. That's crazy. And I think that's a kind of one of those only in America things that something like that could happen. But what a very good question.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Gary.
You bet. My pleasure. And good luck to you.